Assalamu alaikum and hi everyone. So, as a lot of you may know, or at least those of you who will be watching this video probably, I enjoy knitting and sometimes I do a bit of crochet work. And the thing about knitting is that you will be using yarns that usually come like this. I don't know whether you call them a roll or a skein, but how you use them is well, I've read that people say you could. I'm getting too far ahead. So the thing about using these yarns is that um, it's usually hard to manage because whenever you want to take the yarn off or unravel the yarn, I would say, you would have to turn the roll around. And so what I end up doing when I use this thing is that I would just keep on pulling, and it can sometimes roll off onto the floor. And so what I like to do is I like to turn them into a ball where you could pull it out from the center. Um, why this is super useful is um, it doesn't move around because if it comes out from the center, it means everything else just stays there. And it is especially useful when I go out. So I can just put this thing in my bag. It doesn't need to roll around. All it needs is to just pull itself from the middle and, being in the bag, it doesn't affect that. So um, I've heard, as you can see, I've already done a little bit, but I thought since I'm starting a new crochet project and I need to make a ball of yarn anyway, I could show you how I do it. So first I need to take this thing off so we can start all over again. Hold on, I have to make sure this thing won't untangle. I don't know how good the sound quality would be because I'm not using a microphone for this. Um, I don't intend this to be a serious video, if that makes sense. I guess I just want to try it and see what I can do. Hold on. And like I said, I don't know how many of you will actually be watching this video anyway. A lot of the people who do connect with me on social media, I think aren't really into knitting or crochet or any of that. So it's an experiment. Okay, what you do first of all is you make a, what do you call it? A slip knot? I think it's called slip knot. This is how I do it. I roll it around my finger twice, and I pull this one forward, and I pull this one forward, and then this one, I'll just pull it up. So you have a hole here that if you pull these two ends, it would just unravel itself, it will unknot. So that will be useful later because we don't want to keep this knot, but this knot will help you, would help the yarn hold on to whatever it is that you're using. I'm just using a rod. You could use anything, depending on the size of the yarn. If you have, I mean the length. If you have a longer yarn, you would use something larger like this. But if you have a smaller yarn, I mean a shorter yarn, you may want to use a pencil perhaps or a pen. So you just hold on to one end. I don't know if it's visible. You could just hold on to one end like this, and then with the other one, you just turning it around like that, like so, and as you twist it around, you turn the rod slightly clockwise or anti-clockwise as you prefer. I tend to do it clockwise, I think. This is, yep, I do it clockwise. So this hand would do the turning, and this hand would just pull the yarn around. So you know, you just go on. This is how it looks like right now. I don't know how visible is it. Can you see that? Okay, I think you can see it. So you just keep going until you get the whole roll done, I suppose. I enjoy it somewhat, but I understand that not everyone enjoys it. I find it calming, and well, I like it when it's done. It's really helpful. I have to be careful with doing that. This just happened. When you do this, you can sometimes accidentally pull the yarn over and make a loop, and you don't want that because you can accidentally tangle it, or you might pull it out like just now. Sometimes, let me try to show you. Like this part here, as I'm pulling it down, and then if I don't turn the rod enough, then it can sometimes pull up, and you have that. But all you do is just go back and redo it. You know. Also, I usually like to put it a little bit near to the top of the rod like that, because that would help you with the rolling. As you probably can guess, this is totally unscripted, and I did not prepare it at all. I just started this on an impulse, so I hope it makes sense. So to those of you who enjoy knitting and crochet, you may want to do this to help you knit easier and more smoothly. It's just a better experience. Also, oh yes, one more thing. For me, this helps me with my tension. I always have a problem with my tension in both knitting and crochet. As well, it used to be especially crochet, but I think my crochet tension had been better recently. And so this, because there's no pull, everything is, I mean, if when I pull here, yes, I can, pull it first and then I knit, but then that's a lot of work. I like to just pull the yarn as I go, like how I coil this thing around the rod right now. I just like to keep it constant, and so I'll have to unravel it first. Either I do that or I just keep pulling. And if I just keep pulling, the problem is that there will be times when the yarn comes out really smoothly in between the rolls, and then when it comes to the part where the yarn is sitting on the underside or on the back, where you have to turn it around a bit, it is going to mess up my tension a lot. And so I just like to have them in these balls because they're useful. So as you can see, I've already gotten this amount, and I just keep on working at it. I'm probably going to add a bit of time lapse because you're probably not going to watch me do this whole thing at normal speed. I mean, there's this amount of yarns. Oh no! Okay, so this can happen sometimes. Sometimes you find yourself in a bit of a knot, especially if you pull a lot of it out before you do it, like I do. So you just have to gently look at it and try to see how it gets knotted and just unravel it. I've never gotten into a position where it is hopelessly tangled, but it takes a bit of patience and there you go, a bit of caution, I suppose. So sometimes it comes to a point where it keeps on slipping. So what I would do is I would change the way I wrap it a bit. So as you may notice, I've been wrapping it like this, in a bit of a diagonal pattern, I would say. Well, it's always will be diagonal, but it's more of a 45 degrees angle, I would say. So this rod is at a 45 degrees angle. So I would move it either this way or this way just for a few rounds to change the shape a bit. I like to do it this way, personally. First, at least, and it's going to change the shape of the ball, so it wouldn't be as round, it will be a bit oblong for a bit, and that's going to help it hold when later I go back to the 45 degrees. The only thing I don't enjoy about making this ball of yarn is this part where I have to pull it out of the roll. It's I don't like it. I don't like it because it's I have to do all that at once. I'm not sure if that makes sense. It means I meant I have to pull it out all together. It's like everything is compounded onto this particular moment where I'm just pulling it out. But I'd rather have it now than having it as I knit later or as I crochet, because like I said, it's going to mess up my tension. Also, some of you may know that I have eczema on my hand. So when I do this, I usually like to do it when my eczema is not acting up too bad, because especially with softer, yeah, with softer and like gentle yarns, I don't like the fact that my scaly skin is getting into the, it's frizzing. Is that a word? It's making it frizz a bit. And so even now I'm having a bit of an eczema, so I don't know how visible is it, but this space just around here, it's relatively smooth, so I keep the yarn fixed to at this point when I pull it so that it doesn't get frizzed as much. So sometimes I have to take breaks between knitting and crochet just because my hand hurts. It well, it doesn't hurt. Depending. A lot of times, like right now, it doesn't hurt at all, and it hasn't been hurting for a few weeks. But for a while, I have to be careful when I knit and crochet anyway because it's scaly and everything, and it catches on the yarn. So with the project I was working on before, I was using a chunky yarn, and so with a chunky yarn, it doesn't matter as much because the yarn is pretty big. But with gentler, smaller yarns, I just want to be careful, especially with this one because it's super shiny. I don't know how visible is it, but it shines really nicely. So I'm afraid if I frizz it, it's going to lose some of the shine. The project that I'll be working on next is a bottle cozy, and I would be using a pattern that my grand aunt wrote for a book that that was published under her name. So I've never done any of the patterns that she wrote other than the ones that she gave when I followed her class, when she taught us how to knit. Us meaning me and my siblings. Aisha and I learned how to knit from her. I already knew how to crochet by then, by watching on the internet, and so I only um, I only learned how to knit from her. No, she only taught me how to knit because I already know how to crochet. Aisha knew how to crochet at the time as well, so she was also taught how to knit. And Anissa learned how to crochet from my grand aunt. She's always telling me to write my patterns down because I never write down what I do, and at the end of the day I have no idea what I did, so to speak, and so I never record them. And it's, you know, I look back at pictures of, oh, look at that basket that I made for my grand aunt's birthday, and my grand aunt asked me if I wrote the pattern down, and I said I didn't. And she's like, no, you should write it down, And I thought, yeah, I mean, I kind of remember what I did. That was a year ago. Now I have no idea what I did. Well, I can probably guess my way back, but it's very hard. It's comparatively way more difficult than if I just actually do it the first time. With um, I the project I was working on before is also a bottle cozy. I also didn't write down what I did then, but I was trying to. I was paying more attention and trying to remember what I did. And so after I was done, because I the I mean, yeah, I could write down as I work on it, but the thing about how I usually knit or crochet is that I don't have a clear cut path on what I'm going to do. It's always a journey. I start with a basic idea of what I want to do, and then I go and look up various stitching, um, I don't call it patterns. What do they call it? Is it called patterns? I'm not sure. But there are various stitches available. A stitch is a combination of specific steps that could get a specific effect on your work. And so from there, you could write a complete pattern to make, say, a bag or a bottle cozy or um, a phone case or, whatever it is that you have in mind. So what I would do is I would just look up those stitches, and then this is going to be a long video. I don't know if I'm going to time lapse any because I'm talking, but you don't have to watch the whole part. If well, if you like me talking, I'm pleased. I talk. Everyone says my siblings say that I talk a lot, and sometimes annoy them quite a bit when I keep on rambling about nonsensical things. So what I would do is I would look up stitches. I need to get back to the point. I would look up stitches and see the various stitches available, and then I would pay attention to the quality of the stitch, how I think, not just how it would look, but some stitches are stronger, especially cables. Cables are pretty strong, and cables look nice. But then, because you'll be going back and forth a lot, you'll be wrapping the yarns in and out. So with cables, you need to be especially careful because you would end up with something really thick if you're not careful. That's what happened to the previous project I was working on, the bottle cozy. I forgot that I was using a cable, and so at the top, what I wanted to do was I wanted to add a drawstring. It would pull shut, but it's also super thick, so I had to go back and redo it and look for various ways to make sure that it wouldn't be as thick when I pull it shut. So from there, sometimes I try to stitch out first, sometimes I just go straight to the project that I want to work on. And then sometimes a lot of those stitch instructions, they tend to offer them if you work back and forth, front and back, wrong side, right side, etc. So sometimes I would like to work in the round. And so, especially if you're working with cables, that would need quite a bit of, I mean, if you're not working on cables, all you have to do is go turn it back and forth in most of the stitches that I've been working on. But with cables, sometimes you need to at first with cables you usually would have some extra stitches at the end, so it would hold the thing and won't have it misshaped when you're working front and back. But when you're working in the round, you don't need that extra few stitches. And so it's important to, and if you add those extra few stitches, you're going to end up with something that is going to look a bit weird because you have all these pretty cables and then suddenly you have a row of nothingness or a stockinette. And well, if that's what you're looking for, then there's no harm in that. But if you want something nice and smooth, something that, oh, hold on, it's a bit stuck. something that would look nice, constant. That's the word I was looking for. Something that is constant. Then you're going to remove that part, and sometimes the cables would. Sometimes you have to work it out so that it would. You are able to cable between different rows. In the previous project I've been working on, I had to do both adjustments, removing the extra stitches and making sure that it can cable between rows to make it appear smooth. And so I plan out the stitch, and then from there I just work it out. So sometimes halfway through a project I realize that it's not a suitable stitch, or perhaps I should increase it more or decrease it more, or maybe instead of making a knit front back, a make one increase will be more suitable. And so I'll just go back and do that. And without recording what I do, at the end of the day, I don't really remember everything that I've done. So with the previous project, the other bottle cozy, I had to, after I was done, I sat down and tried to record everything that I did. And oh my goodness, it was such a headache because I don't remember what I did. And based on the calculations that I make, everything doesn't seem right, and the gauge was off. I mean, from in order to make sure that what I wrote down. Oh look, we're at the end of this part of the yarn. See there? Sometimes in a roll of yarn like this, they would knot different separate yarns. And so what I like to do is stop here, but then this one seems a bit tightly wrapped. Maybe I'll have to cut it. Tightly not, I'm sorry. I don't like having this in my knitting or my crochet because when I have knots in my work, usually I don't like to knot them. I like to knit them over each other. I don't know about crochet. I've never had to connect two in crochet. I probably knot it in crochet. I don't know if there's a different way. You probably should tell me. So I would like to make it appear seamless, completely smooth, and so I would just end it here so that I would be aware of the fact that I'm connecting two different yarns when I'm actually working on this. So let me look for a pair of scissors and cut this out. And I'm back with a pair of scissors. This is actually my mom's. I hope she wouldn't mind me borrowing it. Sometimes I would unknot it, but I'm not good at unknotting, and with my fingers in the way it is now, it's kind of hard for me to do that, so I'll just cut it off. There we go. So once you're done, just find a way to tuck it in, this end of the yarn. Don't put it in the middle. I think that's going to mess it up a bit. It's going to make it easier to tangle, I suppose. So I'll just find maybe here. I like to use a crochet hook to do this actually. Let me get a crochet hook. I should probably start with all the tools here so I don't have to move about, but here we go. So I just put my crochet hook in. Try not to hook onto anything else. There. I don't know if it's visible. I just hook it in. I think you get the gist if you crochet a lot. So just hook it in, making sure I don't pull anything else. There. And I just pull it out. This should be pretty secure. It's a bit annoying having this thing out. You could tuck it in. I usually just let it be because I don't think it would hurt. Now I just pull it out and there you go. This is the middle end. This is the other end that we started with. That's a slip knot. Just pull it out and now you can start knitting. As you can see, it just pulls from the middle like that. So this thing can just, you couldn't see my table, I'm sorry. You could just hold it like that. Imagine this is the table. And, you know, it doesn't move. It just stays there. And it's super helpful. So I hope that helps, and I hope I don't bore you to death with my super long rambles. I don't know if I'll be making any of this anytime soon or in the future, but if you enjoy it, let me know. Maybe I'll make another one where I, do random things and just ramble about. Um, that's it. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and take care, everybody.